Solve the triangle. So here's triangle ABC, and we know angle measures are 106 degrees for angle B, 42 degrees for angle C, and we know side AB, or simply side lowercase a, is 12.2. And we know side AB, or simply called lowercase c because it's opposite from angle C, so that equals lowercase c. All right. Now I know two angle measures of the triangle, so I can just apply the triangle sum theorem to figure out the measure of angle A. So I can say that measure of angle A plus 106 degrees plus 42 degrees equals 180 degrees. Measure of angle A equals 180 degrees minus 148 degrees. And all I did was simplify the 106 plus 42 and then subtract. .32. So measure of angle A is 32 degrees. Go ahead and write that in there. Okay. So now we need to figure out sides A and B. And to do that, we're going to apply the law of sines. And the law of sines simply states sine of angle A to A, which is the side length opposite angle A, equals sine of B to B, equals sine of C to C. Okay, now we're trying to solve for measure of side A and side B, so I'm just going to use sine A over A right now. So sine of A to A equals, and we know both pieces of information for angle C, measure of angle C, and side C. So I'm going to say it's sine of C to C. Now the point here is I'm creating a proportion, and I'm using a pair of measures that are known. Measure of angle C and measure of side C are both known. And we also know the measure of angle A for this sine A ratio. And that's just going to leave the lowercase a, or the length of side A, to solve for. When you're creating your proportions, make sure you only have one item you're trying to solve for, because if you have two that you don't know, your proportion's not going to work. So let's go ahead and substitute the values. Measure of angle A is 32 degrees. And then measure of side A we don't know. Measure of angle C is 42 degrees. Measure of side C is 12.2. So now we have a proportion that has one unknown. And we can solve this by cross multiplying. So I'm going to say it's going to be A times, I'll write it over here, A times sine of 42 degrees equals 12.2 times the sine of 32 degrees. Okay, now next thing I like to do is I like to take each trigonometric ratio and go ahead and convert it to a decimal on the calculator. That way it's just kind of easier for me to keep track of what's going on. And the consensus is, when you're working with trigonometric ratios, round to 4 decimal places. So I'm going to do the sine of 42 degrees and get 0.6691, and that's the value I'm going to use. So it's going to be A times 0.06691 equals 12.2 times sine of 32 degrees, which is 0.5299. Okay, and I'm going to simplify this right side. So 12.2 times 0.5299, 6.46478. And I'm still going to round to 4 decimal places for now, 6.4648. And that's going to equal A times 0.6691. So to solve for A, I have to divide both sides by 0.6691. And see what I did here? By hitting the divide sign, it automatically is going to use the answer from up above, so that makes it easier. I'm just going to round it to the nearest tenth to 9.7. So A equals 9.7. The last item to solve for is this side length B, and I'm going to use the law of sines again, and I'm still going to use sine of A to A, and I'm going to say equals sine of B to B. And that is going to be sine of 32 degrees to 9.7 equals sine of 106 degrees to B. Same strategy here, cross multiply. It's going to be B times the sine of 32 degrees equals 9.7 times the sine of 106 degrees. So sine of 32 degrees, we already know from before, is 0.5299. So B times 0.05299 equals, and then I'll do 9.7 times the sine of 106. I'll just do that all in the calculator at once. Like that. So that's 9.3242. Then to solve for the length of B, divide both sides by 0.5299. So just divide it by 0.5299. 17.596 or 17.6. So I'm going to write this up here. B equals 17.6. Okay, so let's review the process. The simplest part was finding the third angle using the triangle sum theorem. So measure of angle A was 32 degrees. Then we applied the law of sines to find the measure of side length A. And then we applied the law of sines again to find the measure of side length B. And all they are is proportions. And just remember, when you're setting up your proportion, make sure your proportion only has one item that you don't know. If it has two items you don't know, your proportion won't work.